let's take a look at some of the top stories. US President Donald Trump has vowed not to be intimidated by Russian President Vladimir Putin ahead of their high-stakes talks in Alaska today, promising Ukraine would be included in any deal even as Kyiv is left out for the talks today. This visit will mark Putin's first visit in the US since 2022. Russian President Vladimir Putin has praised North Korean troops fighting in Ukraine as heroic in a letter to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, underscoring deepening military ties between Moscow and Pyongyang. The message comes amid global concerns over North Korean involvement in the war with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has secured the return of 84 prisoners of war, including 33 soldiers and 51 civilians in its latest war with Russia. According to the Ukrainian State Committee on POW, officials said one prisoner has been held for over 4,000 days, making this one of the most significant exchanges to date. Germany and the EU have urged Israel to halt plans to build thousands of new homes in the West Bank, warning that the controversial E1 settlement project undermines the two-state solution and violates international law. German officials and EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas have strongly rejected the Israeli government's decision. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that Tehran is working with China and Russia to prevent Britain, France, and Germany from reimposing snapback sanctions over its nuclear program, according to local media. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has announced that he will seek to restore the 2018 September 19 military agreement to halt border military activity with North Korea. In a speech marking the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese rule, Lee also pledged to revive inter-Korean cooperation to reduce tensions with North Korea. Japan has recorded modest economic growth in Q2 despite US tariff pressures, according to its official data. As Japanese Buddhism Obon Day takes off today, Agriculture Minister Shinjiro Koizumi joined thousands at Tokyo's controversial Yasukuni Shrine to mark 80 years since Japan's World War II defeat. A revised proposal with over 100 unresolved passages was issued to break the deadlock in global plastic pollution treaty talks, with negotiators calling it an acceptable basis for negotiation. However, environmental NGOs slammed the compromise text, warning it falls short of protecting human health and the environment. Washington has confirmed that US President Donald Trump is set to depart from the White House at 6:45 a.m. local time. Heading to Anchorage, Alaska, Trump is scheduled to participate in a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at 11 a.m. local time. Once the meeting concludes, he is expected to depart Anchorage at 5:45 p.m. for the return flight to the White House. Meanwhile, Russian Finance Minister Anton Siluanov has also arrived in Anchorage and expressed hope for positive results from the meeting between US and Russian representatives. This comes after Trump said he believes Putin is ready to end the war in Ukraine, but peace would likely require at least a second meeting involving Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy. Reportedly, Ukrainian leaders and their European allies have intensified efforts to ensure that any US-Russia deal does not leave Ukraine vulnerable to future attacks. Trump has described the summit as the first move in a chess game, cautioning that there is a 25% chance that the initial meeting may not be successful. He also said that the follow-up meeting with Putin and Zelensky could be more important in securing a peace deal. Here's what the US president had to say.
We have a meeting. second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. We're going to see what happens with our meeting. We have a big meeting. It's going to be, I think, very important for Russia, and it's going to be very important for us, and important for us only that we're going to save a lot.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he's hopeful about the talks and emphasized the need for security guarantees as part of any peace agreement. Let's listen into what Marco Rubio had to say.
That's the reality of ongoing fighting, which is why a ceasefire is so critical. That's been our proposal from Jeddah when we left in Saudi Arabia. But we'll see what's possible tomorrow. Let's see how the talks go. And we're hopeful. We want there to be a peace. We're going to do everything we can to achieve one. But ultimately, it'll be up to Ukraine and Russia to agree to one. Well, to achieve a peace, I think we all recognize that there'll have to be some conversation about security guarantees. There'll have to be some conversation about, territorial disputes and claims and what they're fighting over. All these things will be part of a comprehensive thing. But I think the president's hope is to achieve some stoppage of fighting so that those conversations can happen. These are tiny technical things that take some time to work out. So to have a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, you will need agreement from both Ukraine and Russia.
On the other hand, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz urged Putin to seize the opportunity for a ceasefire during the Alaska talks, noting that Trump could take a major step towards peace more than 3 years after the war began. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you, Dr. Satoru, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, Trump claims he can judge the success of this summit within 2 minutes or within 5 minutes. How realistic is this approach in dealing with complex war diplomacy with Russia?
When we analyze these meetings, maybe we need to analyze three actual interests. Firstly, United States, Russia, and Zelensky's Ukraine with Europe is the three actors. First one is the United States. In case of the United States, they want to seek the ceasefire because the United States want to concentrate in the Indo-Pacific instead of Europe. So they want to relocate resources. So that's why the first is seeking ceasefire. But if ceasefire failed, the United States asked Europe to share more security burden. And instead of using the resources in Europe, the US want to use the same resources to the Indo-Pacific. That is their interest. And view from the Russia, what is the interest? Russia is winning the war gradually, one by one, since 2014. So that's why they want to continue the war. But the sanction is not welcome. So that's why they want to extend the deadline of the sanction is the interest. But at the same time, secondly, Russia want to divide the opinion of America and Ukraine. Because they want to talk with America only, and they do not want to talk with Ukraine or Europe. So they want to divide. Because there is a conflict between America and Europe is welcome for Russia. So that's why Russia want to extend the deadline means that they will promise the next meeting, and that is the first priority for them, and extend the deadline of the sanctions of the United States. And thirdly, the view from Zelensky in Europe, what is the interest? View from the Zelensky in Europe, firstly, the US and Russia decide something without Europe is the problem, so that's why this is they want to avoid. And secondly, stopping the invasion of Russia, that is of course important, even if the temporary this is important. And thirdly, they want they do not want America to escape from Europe. America want to concentrate in the Pacific. That's why they want to solve the problem. But Europe wants U.S. to maintain their presence in Europe. So that's why they try to hold United States is also the interest. So in this case, what will happen in this meeting? The three things could happen. Firstly, of course, a meeting between the Putin and Zelensky will happen, and Putin visit Alaska. This is also a risk, but he decided to come. This is achievement. But after that, he meets Zelensky. That is also a diplomatic achievement. So that's why U.S. want to seek. And the view from Russia, this is not welcome. But if this is the only way Russia need to concede this could happen, that is the first one. Secondly, temporary ceasefire is for some days or 1 month or more longer. Anyway, this is temporary. The war will restart. That is the second situation it could happen. Thirdly, permanent ceasefire. That is Russia do not want, but American side and European side want. That is another topic. And fourthly, in the Russia want is promise the next meeting and extend the deadline of the U.S. sanction. That is fourth thing. So these four is the line up what will happen and which one will happen rely on the situation of the negotiation. That is the current situation, my analysis. Thank you.
And Dr. Satoru, since you've mentioned four of them, and among them, if Trump does or if Trump fails to secure concessions from Putin, what impact could that have on both Ukraine's position and America's global standing?
If the situation, if the negotiation this time fail, but U.S. and Russia promised to extend the deadline of the sanction because of that they promised the next meeting. Still, there is a hope to conclude some certain people think. So that's why the situation is gradually just shameful for the United States, but still there is a hope. So that's why some certain number of the people support the U.S. move. So that's why this is relatively soft landing, but indeed this is Russia's favor.
Thank you.
And but Europe and Europe do not worry about U.S. is still keeping in this case keeping their presence in the Europe, and so that's why gradually this will land is indeed Europeans do not hate it, but anyway. U.S. asked Europe to share more security burden in this region, and they want to concentrate in the Pacific instead of Europe, I think.
Thank you, Dr. Satoru, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you and we stay on this topic now. In Anchorage, residents and tourists are sharing mixed reactions ahead of Friday's summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Some visitors say they are believed to be leaving before the event, calling it a distraction from other issues, while others say they would avoid the area altogether. Locals are also split. Some see the meeting as a positive for Alaska, calling the state vital and politically significant, while others hope the talks will bring peace over the Ukraine war, but warn that the situation could turn dangerous. Let's listen into what the residents had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I found it ironic that we were going to be here when my two favorite dictators were going to be in the city. No, I just think it's a distraction to alleviate some of the other issues Trump is facing.
I think it's great. I mean, Alaska is very vital to the United States, and it's a prominent state for, the red state, as you could say. Trump is a big, factor here, and I think it'd be great for us to have it here. Yeah.
Our tour group is leaving today, so we won't be here. But if we were here, I would not be anywhere near it. I'd be opposite of the town. I'd be on the other side.
About it's something to go with the Ukrainian war. So, I hope peace goes out. We don't want another war. Yeah. So, just all love. I like what Trump is doing, trying to get peace, but it could get very dangerous, but really looking forward to it.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute. Thank you, Dr. Satoru, for staying with us. Now, how do you think these residents' mixed reaction reflect broader public sentiment about this upcoming summit between Trump and Putin?
Yeah, of course, the mixed reaction is understandable because firstly, Alaska is the center of the world politics just now. This means that this is good for anyone in Alaska because this is, anyone cannot forget where is Alaska now. But at the same time, there is a risk, of course, because there's a possibility 3 leaders which can decide the fate of the history gather this place, and there is assassination risk, there is containment risks also, because if the leader gather, and this is just a little bit scenario, one kind of dream scenario, but in the past, what happened in China is a good example. When the current Taiwan government and the Chinese Communist Party leader agree to fight against Japan just before the World War II, that time what happened is they invite 2 leaders of the 2 parties and contain them in the one room, and finally they cannot escape from the room. That's why they agree finally. That has happened. So arrangement of the containment could happen if Trump decides to contain the Putin and Zelensky in one room. So that's why such kind of risk is exist. So what will happen in this place is, of course, this is unpredictable just now. So that's why view from the resident in the Alaska, they worry about what will happen. That is also understandable. So this is the good and bad. Both is coming to Alaska just now. So residents worry and hope. This is understandable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for joining us and sharing your insight throughout our news. Now we move on to our next news. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged 84 prisoners each. This is the latest in a series of swaps that has seen hundreds of POWs released so far this year. This latest one came on the eve of a high-level summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. counterpart Donald Trump in Alaska tonight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy has said on social media that among the exchanged prisoners were both military personnel and civilians, some of whom had been held by the Russians since 2014, 2016, and 2017. He also said that Ukrainian soldiers that he called defenders of Mariupol were also part of the swap, referring to a Ukrainian port city that fell to Russian forces in 2022, following a nearly 3-month siege. The Russian Defense Ministry has reportedly said that the United Arab Emirates had mediated the exchange and that the released Russian personnel were receiving psychological and medical assistance. Let's listen into what some of the prisoners of war and their family members had to say.
Повезло, просто, видать, какая-то чутье какое-то. Как раз пошли в відпустку, я з чоловіком говорю, надо поїхати, давай поїдемо. І молодший син прийшов в відпустку, будущий офіцер, говорю, давай поїдемо, це наш шанс, і повезло просто.
Дякую всем, я їхав, я честно не ожидал такого, еду, там везде люди стоят, слева, справа машут, с флагами, бабушка бежит, флагом махает, дедушка споткнулся, думаю, вот это да, думаю, я вернулся на родину. Честно, не думал никогда, что такое будет. Спасибо большое всем, спасибо за большое.
Вам дякуємо за захист. Вітаємо вдома!
Все, тихо. Да, теща скажи, пускай блины печет. Тестю звони. Давай, люблю тебя. Все, Кариночку посылай от меня. Да.
Все нормально. Всем передай, маме позвони обязательно, скажи. Все, Аня, все нормально, уже все хорошо. Скоро увидимся. Деток поцелуй. Все.
Нас не забыли, и Министерство обороны, и президент, как бы всем огромное спасибо, выражаем свою благодарность.
Now for this discussion, we're joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a journalist of the Korea Herald, joins us live from Seoul. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, what does the involvement of UAE as a mediator say about shifting diplomatic alliances, and why UAE? What's its role?
UAE has been mediating for these POWs, which is paying in practice, and it should be applauded right now because no matter from which theories of war you see, or no matter which international cooperation theories you apply, especially if you see the Geneva Conventions on prisoners of wars, I think this kind of exchange is signaling good vibes, I mean optimistic vibes for the conclusion of this war. I am using conclusion word because the war is not concluded because there is no ceasefire so far. Of course, Trump is going to talk in Alaska about these matters, but the war has not been concluded. The agreements have not been concluded. There is a huge concern for future security of Ukraine, and that is why this POW exchange should be well received by the peace-loving people across the.
And Dr. Sanjay, given that some of these prisoners have been held for years, what does this exchange tell us about the evolving nature of Russia-Ukraine relations now?
If you see the exchanges, there are not only military people, military personnel, but also civilians who had been captivated since 2014, 16, 19. And because of this, it is very significant because when civilians are exchanged, when these interactions happen, it really set the ground. It set the stage for more bilateral and trilateral talks. And because of that, this is remarkable that both the countries are showing such kind of gesture, especially ahead of the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. So this exchange should be utilized for a further dialogue in a positive direction. Of course, Europe also has to play a role here because there are some unsettled issues because when these war negotiations happen, there are many demands from different sides. And not only Ukraine, but Europe also is a kind of stakeholder in this entire war. So it is not just going to be Trump, Putin, and Zelensky talk, I mean the second round of talks, but Europe also has to take some kind of responsibility, and they have to actively endorse some of the talks and the agreements for long-lasting and future secured peace. This is the situation right now.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, for always joining us and sharing your insight from Seoul. Now we move on to our next news. Germany, the United Nations, the European Union have joined a wave of condemnation over Israel's decision to advance a long-delayed settlement in the West Bank. Germany has urged Israel to halt construction, while the European Commission said that the annexation of territory is illegal under international law. The UN has warned that the project would end prospects for a two-state solution. Let's listen into what UN spokesperson has said.
Our position on settlements is clear. The Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and the regime that's associated with these settlements go against international law. Settlements, to state the obvious, further entrench the occupation, put the prospect of a two-state solution even further away. And as you said, if this went ahead, and which we call on the Israeli government not to do, and we call them to reverse, to stop the advancement of this process, it would sever the northern and southern West Banks. And I think, interestingly enough, as the Israeli finance minister and the Palestinians and other NGOs all agree, it would put an end to the prospects of a two-state solution.
The criticism follows an announcement by Israeli far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich that work will begin on the long-frozen E1 settlement, a development that would divide the West Bank and cut it off from East Jerusalem. Smotrich, speaking at the site, said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump had agreed to the revive of the project. describing it as a move that would bury the idea of Palestinian state. Palestinian leaders, allies, and rights groups have condemned the plan as illegal and a blow to any future peace deal. In separate remarks, Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Sharpin Haskell outlined 5 key principles for ending the war in Gaza. Let's listen into her comments.
These are our 5 clear principles for concluding the war. First, Hamas must be completely disarmed. Second, every hostage must be freed. Third, Gaza must be fully demilitarized. Fourth, Israel must retain overriding security control. And fifth, Gaza must have a non-Israeli, peaceful civilian administration, one that does not indoctrinate its children to hate, does not reward terrorism, and does not launch attacks.
Now for this discussion, we are joined by Rohan Gunaratna. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Singapore. Thank you, Rohan, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, with this E1 settlement potentially undermining a two-state solution, what are the broader implications for this?
Asuma, if there is more settlements, it will lead to unhappiness, and there will be no negotiated settlement for the release of the hostages and for the disarming of Hamas and the surrender of Hamas. So Israel will have to navigate the next few days and next few weeks very carefully for 2 reasons. One is there is ongoing talks both in Egypt and in Qatar for the release of all the hostages, because Prime Minister Netanyahu wants a comprehensive settlement. He doesn't want just 5 hostages released. He doesn't want Hamas to buy time. And it is the right thing for the Muslim leaders and the international community to urge Hamas to release the hostages, because hostage taking in the 21st century is one of the cruelest things to do. So I believe that the European countries, rather than reward Hamas by recognizing Palestinian statehood at this time, their focus should be the release of the hostages. And of course, disarming Hamas. Hamas cannot exist anymore in Gaza because Hamas mounted one of the most barbaric terrorist attacks in the world. So to move forward, Israelis also should stop the settlements. If there is settlement of Jewish people in West Bank and in Gaza, there's not going to be a resolution in this problem. This conflict will continue. It will go beyond your generation and my generation.
Yes, and now how do you see the U.S.'s role, particularly under President Trump, influencing this ongoing situation and such decisions?
President Trump's leadership has helped to secure the release of nearly 200 hostages because he has been steadfastly supporting Israel on the hostage matter. Even before he was elected as president, before he took office as president, he very clearly told Hamas, all hell will break loose if you don't release the hostages. And likewise, he kept to his word of supporting Israel. Today, no country should suffer from what Israel has suffered, meaning a devastating terrorist attack that led to a devastating war. So US position is very clear. Release the hostages or we are going to take over Gaza. You will lose the Palestinian territory of Gaza. So I think that the Arab leaders, the Muslim leaders should now move forward to get these hostages released and for Hamas to surrender. These two are the 2 main security concerns. The United Nations, Britain, Canada,
yes,
Germany, France, all these countries that want to recognize the Palestinians.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us, Rohan Gunaratna, and sharing your insight. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring